back in March when I got laid off. That very day, I was looking at flights to Rome or Assisi. I have been wanting to go to Italy for a long time. My love of architecture and art really inspired me to go there and see all of the works that had inspired me to pursue my degree and inspired me to want to create beautiful things. And I knew that it was the Franciscan year, so I wanted to, because I can't ever do something singularly, I have to go all in. I wanted to go to Assisi for the Franciscan year. Obviously the indulgences go to any church dedicated to St. Francis and you'll get an indulgence. Well, why would I do just St. Francis Church in Portland, Oregon? I had to go to Assisi. So I was looking at dates, I was monitoring them. I was noticing they'd go down in October. And I thought, oh, that'd be pretty sweet. If only I can curate enough PTO at work, then we can pull the trigger on these plane tickets. And the very day that I'm looking at plane tickets, I get pulled into one of the conference rooms by two principals at the firm I was working at. I knew immediately that this was me getting laid off. But I was so profoundly at peace. I wasn't shaken up. I wasn't blaming myself like I often do when bad things happen. I knew that this wasn't in my control. Particular grace from God as well. I was very at peace that Holy Week. This happened during Holy Week, the Tuesday of Holy Week, in fact. So I knew God was preparing something. And so I ended up going for it. I got laid off. I had so much time. I had enough money. I figured the Lord has willed it. It will fall into place. We'll make a Franciscan year of it. And he really did. So I ended up going to Rome. I buy a one-way ticket to Rome. I get to Rome. I'm spending some time there. Rome was meant to be the more touristy side of it, more so the let's look at the art and the pretty churches side of it, while also going to some holy sites, the holy stairs. I wanted to see the relics of the cross, but they were put away when I visited. I was very heartbroken. And then after spending about a week in Rome, I bought a train ticket to go to Assisi. And this was the crux, or the apex of the pilgrimage. And as I was on the train to Assisi, I was like, okay, Rome was kind of overwhelming. I wasn't blown away. I didn't have some crazy spiritual experience. I was honestly a bit lonely, especially seeing so many works of art and architecture that I love so deeply. I wasn't able to turn to my left or right and gush about it to someone I care about who cares about me. And I kept reminding myself, oh, well, you know, the Lord's always with me. But that's so hard when you're alone. You're traveling solo in a new country where you don't speak the language. You can always know the knowledge that the Lord's with you, but you don't feel it. It's harder to capitulate that feeling. So I was giving myself these little words of comfort that it'll be better in Assisi. You'll be in the countryside. You're away from the hustle and bustle, which I think is kind of ironic because Francis didn't like Assisi for being so rich. And so I was making my mental plans of all the churches, sites, and hikes I was going to do in Assisi. And I ended up getting extremely sick the first night I was in Assisi. I booked the cheapest hostel that I could find, and the hostel was a nightmare. I couldn't check in. I didn't have sheets or towels or anything. I ended up somehow getting in contact with the manager, and he wasn't even on the property. He just told me to grab a key and get to the room. It just all made me extremely uncomfortable. And then I wake up in the middle of the night with the worst stomach pain. It had to be from the food I ate, but the food I ate was pasta and oil. The very ugly truth of it was that nothing was staying down in any capacity. And I was exhausted, ill, defeated that this pilgrimage that I wanted to be joyful and hopefully fruitful was making me so miserable. And I felt abandoned. And part of me wondered, it went back to this younger mindset of myself that I must have done something wrong. Which is a deontological mindset that I am fortunate to have grown from. But it was like this, my brain reverted to that. But my brain was also just feeling extremely abandoned. How could I have made such a sacrifice and still feel like the Lord was allowing me to suffer? And I end up calling a friend, getting enough gumption and strength to climb up into the city, get some medicine, book a hotel, and I tried to go to the Basilica of St. Clair in between many bathroom breaks, and the basilica's closed. So I'm wandering around, and I remember seeing the little niches of saints and of Mary, and I actually feel pain in my heart because I feel abandoned and betrayed. And I remember as I'm staring up at this niche of Mary feeling this way, and I wonder if this is how so many people who have felt hurt by the church and betrayed by the church have felt. college I did, albeit a few years ahead of me. I ended up saying hello, asking if they did indeed go to the college I went to, which they did. They said their greetings and how cool it was to have seen someone from the States all the way out here. And that gave a little bit of hope in my heart. We ended up saying our goodbyes. They had to go to lunch. I did not explain to them the state I was in, otherwise I might have boldly asked if I could join them. But as they depart, I look up at the church that we had our conversation in front of, and I noticed that that's where Carlo Acutis was. So I went in and spent a few hours in front of his tomb praying, watching people go by. There was no words of wisdom placed on my heart. There was no consolations, but I just sat and prayed. And I pressed some rosaries in this necklace on the tomb. And then I walked back to the hotel, and I stayed in the hotel the rest of my days booked in Assisi. So I ended up getting a train ride back into Rome. Just went to the airport, and from the airport I flew to Spain and met back up with a friend who was living there, and she so lovingly was able to finally bring me back to health. I was so weak and eating crackers and juice and Gatorade when I finally got to the airport and figured out how to find Gatorade. But it's not until this hindsight that I can even see that time as a gift. Because I had the head knowledge that everything happens for a reason, that God will allow this for something. But I think perhaps that I maybe took that trip for that moment, looking at a niche and knowing what it felt like to feel betrayed by the church. And that can only have been a fraction of what it was like for so many people. I can't even imagine the depth and the particulars, how that is for so many people. Perhaps the suffering could be offered up for victims who great theodrama, there must always be hope. So what is the hope? There is someone who sees the totality and the depth, all the sides of us, and not in a perverse or in a judging, I've seen everything you've ever done way, but